All right, we're at top of the hour. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rocky Pratt with GBS Retire, representing on Smart Wealth Moves for the holidays today. And we're excited about this month's webinar. We're doing it in collaboration with the wellness team at GBS Benefits. And next week, so if you registered for this meeting today, next week you'll automatically be registered for an additional webinar, more on the behavioral side of spending in the holidays and planning for that. That'll be from our behavioral health expert, Catherine, next week. So feel free to jump on that one as well. I would encourage you to do so. These go in tandem that we're doing this month. So we're excited to give this a try. As always, within the survey that we send out, feel free to give us some feedback and what you would like to see next year going forward for some of these webinars as well. Just want to do a quick introduction before we dive into the details of our presentation today. So as you see, yes, my name is Rocky. No, I was not named after Rocky Balboa, although that would have been cool, and I do get that a lot. I've been with GBS Retire for almost 4 years now, doing a lot of these education meetings, one-on-one individual meetings, and ultimately what my calling is financial planning. That's what I love doing. I love helping people prepare for their financial goals, and there's a lot of details that come into that. So we'll touch on a couple of them today, specifically around spending and saving for the holidays. It's an exciting time of year, right? It's my wife's favorite time of year. She always says how much she loves this time of year, and particularly the gifts and receiving gifts. She's great, and we love this time of year on the holidays. Hopefully you feel the same. As questions come up, enter them into the Q&A. Chad, my colleague, will be monitoring that as well, and we'll be able to answer those either as we go or at the end. But we do want to address some questions if they come up as well. There's a few things we'll go into today around spending around the holidays, right? Being intentional, strategic, and stress-free around the holidays. A couple things that came to my mind when preparing this presentation: spending with purpose, strategic giving, and then this is the big one. This is an important one: debt-free and future focused. So these are the areas that I kind of would focus on today for our short 30-minute webinar. The biggest thing that I can do and that I hope to be able to do during this short time is to give you some confidence and some motivation for this season to be able to get through it without a whole lot of stress, without a whole lot of guilt, and be able to move into the new year excited and ready to move forward for next year's holiday season as well. So diving right in, the main theme and focus of this presentation is to help you to be able to celebrate with confidence. And the big thing that helps with that is spending with purpose, right? And this is one area that allows us to have generosity and be generous that's both fulfilling and financially smart, right? So it's important to be generous during this time of year, the holiday season, but it needs to be fulfilling. It needs to point in the right direction with our priorities and our goals, and it has to be financially smart. If you've heard me talk before, if you've met with me previously individually, a lot of what I focus on is aligning our habits, our day-to-day habits and behaviors with our long-term priorities and financial goals. Probably one of the most important things that we talk about when it comes to financial planning is figuring out what those priorities and those goals, those values are, and then how can we direct our day-to-day habits to point towards that. And that is really ultimately how we spend with purpose. But I'll ask you this question here. When thinking about holiday spending coming up, what do you think about? What do you feel when you think about holiday spending? Is it excitement? Like my wife, when she thinks about being able to spend lots of money and make other people happy and to receive gifts and give gifts, that's exciting. Maybe stressful. Maybe if you're like me, it gets a little stressful during this time of year, right? I will admit to feeling a bit of stress and guilt as well as another one that emotions that I have this time of year that can kind of overshadow the excitement and the joy of the season. There's a lot of different things that we think about and feel around this time of year. And I found a lot of it also comes from how we were raised, right? Whether the different sides that we saw growing up, whether from our parents, friends, family, that influences our behavior and our decisions around finances and habits a lot, sometimes even more than we expect. Growing up, I saw both sides of it, where my dad was more on the excited side, where he liked to spend, 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 and my mom was the other side. She wanted to save, 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 and make things, do things with time as opposed to money around the holidays. And she felt a lot of stress. And so there's two sides of it. Big thing is to understand where you're coming from. What emotions are you feeling? What are you excited about? What are you stressed about? Guilt is a big one as well. that plays into this question of what I actually want my money to do this season, right? There's a lot of times and areas within this time of year where we may feel guilty if in terms of certain spending and expenses, right? If we every year we have a big family that we're providing lots of gifts for and receiving lots of gifts, if we don't or are thinking about not extending those gifts to certain family members or friends, that can cause a lot of guilt, right? And one of the big things that I wanted to portray and convey to you today is that it's okay not to give certain gifts to certain people in certain circumstances. The most important part of that is to be open and honest and upfront about your values and your goals for the season, right? Especially with close family members and friends, making sure that they're aware of your goals and your priorities. That's a big one in terms of eliminating guilt around maybe changing up some traditions if that's what needs to happen. And so hopefully you can free yourself a little bit of that guilt. But the big area there, if you have that guilt or are trying to avoid being, feeling that guilt around offering and presenting gifts or even time to certain people, is to be upfront, open, and honest about what your goals are. And to be honest, a lot of times they're probably feeling the same thing as well, right? And you come to them saying, as an example, I'm really focusing on paying down debt, or I'm really focusing on sticking to my budget or saving for a down payment on a house. Therefore, instead of, X, Y, and Z, we're going to do this. And a lot of times they're going to be like, oh, thank you for saying that. I'm in the same boat, or I'm planning for this, or the other. And then it really helps to eliminate that guilt, that stress, and help us to be more excited about actually giving where we want to and where we are fulfilled this holiday season. So that's a big one that I always like to think about and plan for this time of year. It always comes back to this values-based spending. Like I already talked about, whenever we're doing financial planning, we like to gear our recommendations, our habits, everything points towards our priorities and our values, right? That helps to keep us motivated and to make those hard decisions sometimes. It all comes down to aligning our money and our spending with what actually matters, whether that's family experiences giving, right? It's not always about those big ticket items like the down payment on a house or saving for retirement. Oftentimes it can be the small things year to year. Like when it comes around to holiday seasons, being able to spend time with family, those we love, have those experiences, whether it's giving gifts or just spending time together. I want to go through a quick example of a client that I work with who really wanted a boat. And nothing wrong with boats. I love boats, right? We go on at least a few boat rides a year with friends and family, and it's great, provides a lot of great experiences and memories with family. But for this particular client, that was their main big goal in retirement. They were getting closer, approaching retirement, and they said our main goal is to buy, a brand new Mastercraft $350,000 boat, which is ridiculous to me how much those cost nowadays, but that's the market for you. And when we were looking at that, we were kind of projecting out and seeing that large expense, $350,000, was a lot in terms of their overall plan. And it was causing some, areas of the plan to not be fulfilled because they were focusing too much on this one expense. And when we were talking about it and figuring out the why behind that goal, we were trying to figure out what value or what priority that boat would fulfill. And as we were going through asking these questions, he started to open up about why he wanted that boat. And it came down to when he was a kid, right? He was a kid, he spent time with his family on that boat, had a lot of great experiences, and wanted to be able to offer that to his kids and grandkids in terms of building and bonding those experiences together. And what we found out when we were talking through this is it really wasn't even about the boat, right? He started to open up about some of the stress that it had caused, repairs, maintenance, breaking down on the side of the road on the way to the lake, different things that caused a lot of stress in the family's life. And so it wasn't even about the boat, it was all about the experience and the bonding and spending time with family, whether that's cars, other goals. A lot of it comes down to the why behind that. And so we were able to create a plan, structure a plan where it had nothing to do with the boat. We were able to build in, maybe you should rent once or twice a year, right? To be able to still have those experiences just without limiting your long-term financial goals. Now, relating that back to the holiday season, all this spending, which of course we have to spend, right? A lot of times, a lot of these experiences and memories come with some spending. And so we have to budget for that. We have to prepare for that, but we need it to align with our priorities, whether that's spending time with family, experiences, giving where we want it to. Being more strategic and having that point towards our values and priorities is the number one thing that I would encourage you all to be thinking about throughout this season and really starting now, creating a plan and being more strategic for that spending. One tool or tip that you can implement is the 3 bucket holiday plan. And that's where you essentially describe your budget for the holiday season, whatever that looks like to you, however much, whether that's $500, $1,000, $10,000, figure out what that budget is going to be. That is going to be the law, for lack of better words. That's going to be the law that you should stick to over the next couple months. And then distribute that into 3 buckets. You can see there, gifts, gathering, and giving. And based on how you want to distribute that, it's all up to you, but add into the gift category, right, a certain amount that you want to be gifting to others. Same with gathering and giving. Separating that into 3 different buckets allows you to have that strategy and those steps to implement over the next couple months. And it allows it to be clear and focused. If you're married and you have a family, keeping it on the same page together so that you're aware of what you're spending, when you're spending it, and which category it goes into. There's budgeting apps as well. YNAB is one. You need a budget to help keep different areas of your budget siloed so you aren't going over in too many areas of your budget. Other apps that are a bit more applicable to this time of year are Santa's Bag, and Elfster. Elfster is another one that, particularly if you do family gift exchanges, that can be a fun one. Secret Santa. Those can be really helpful in terms of sticking to these budgets and making sure that you're not going over in these different categories. But having a certain amount set aside for each category or each bucket can be very helpful so that you know how much you can spend. And for example, in the gifting category, you can say we need to give gifts to 10, 15 other people. We have X amount assigned so that we can, assign 10, 15, 50, $100 to each person, however you want to set that up, just so you're able to be more strategic about that through the holiday season. And again, a big part of all this is being open and transparent, right? Especially in your immediate family, being open and transparent to your kids, grandkids, friends, if you're giving gifts to friends or other family members as well, being open and transparent allows you and really sets you free to be able to follow your budget and for them as well. A couple other practical tips. It all comes down to being more intentional, and being more intentional, that intentionality replaces guilt with clarity through the holiday season, allows you to have less stress and be more excited and be able to enjoy the holiday season, which I know a lot of us, I meet with a number of, single parents, people early on in their career where they don't have a lot of discretionary expenses. This time of year can be fairly stressful, but being more intentional can definitely replace that guilt with clarity. One card for all holiday expenses is typically recommended. So instead of having, you go off with the credit card and then your spouse is using a debit card with the bank and then some cash here and there, try and have all holiday expenses on one, say, mode of transactions, whether that's a credit card, a debit card, or just cash. Trying to keep it all in one place helps you to keep that under control and increases your awareness, which goes right into that next point of reviewing those weekly totals. So each week, depending on when you like to make those expenses, review those weekly totals to make sure that you're not spending out of control. And then spending intentionally, not reactively, that's a big one. One area there that I would recommend, there's a lot of tools nowadays that you can use to essentially track the price of different gifts throughout the weeks. So now we're well in advance of Black Friday. Some of those deals are starting to come out. So it'd be a good idea to have some of those apps looking for deals on those items. So if you know that someone in your family wants X gift, you can have even ChatGPT, different AI tools can scour the marketplace and find and alert you when there are some lower deals. Capital One has their different browser extension that you can add in to keep an eye on those deals that are coming around for those expenses. You can have it tracking that across the marketplace, and then you'll be alerted when there's a deal, say it's 20% off. You can then go in and purchase that on sale rather than waiting until the last minute, and then you have to buy at full price. So being more intentional about that will help to keep the expenses down throughout the season as well. Another tip that I would say goes along with that one card, if at all possible, I like the use of a debit card. If you find yourself prone to going a little bit out of control on the credit card and then having to worry about that in January, try switching to a debit card so that you can stick to those totals that you want budgeted in each section. Strategic giving. This is another one that's a big part of the year, and this is both giving gifts as well as giving in terms of donations and charitable giving. It's a big part of the holiday season, allowing you to be generous, but again, that's fulfilling and financially smart. Shifting from obligation to impact. It always feels better when giving is planned. And just because it's planned, just because it's strategic, does not negate or reduce the generosity factor behind it. Good ideas that I already mentioned, family gift exchange. So if you previously were buying individual gifts for each and individual members of your extended family, right, this may not apply to your immediate family, but extended family, maybe propose switching to a Secret Santa style or family gift exchange where you're only buying one gift instead of multiple. And again, whenever introducing these, I always recommend coming in, with a bit of a background. Hey, we're really focused on this goal, paying down debt, buying a house, whatever that is. And because of that, we're wanting to focus in these areas this holiday season to keep us in line with that goal. That openness and transparency is always better. Setting a giving goal, whether that's time, money, or goods, right? Time is a big one that a lot of people forget about. Service can be a great gift. If you're just spending time with friends or family, that can be a great gift in and of itself. Then the last one that I'm excited to try implementing this season and going forward is more of a family philanthropy night. So if you traditionally like to give to any charities towards the end of the year, rather than saying, okay, now we have to come up with an extra 500,000, whatever that is, to give to that charity, let's instead say, hey, as a family, friends, we're initiating a philanthropy night for this charity where they can come in, they can add their donations to the pool, and then it can all go to that charity. So you're not having to do all of that on your own as well. Plus, it can be a fun opportunity just to get people together where there's not a lot of expenses involved. Everybody, I'm sure, would appreciate that. Other giving strategies, this comes down also into tax purposes, right? There's a lot of tax benefits around giving this time of year. So whether you're gifting for fun or tax purposes, do it strategically, right? There's a number of different strategies around charitable giving you can implement that can be more tax efficient. Donor advised funds. That's essentially a brokerage account or investment account you can set up to make contributions to. You still get the same tax benefits, but it goes into an investment that you can then plan for long term in terms of charitable giving. So it goes into the account, you get the tax benefit, and then at a later time you can decide to transfer that to a charity. So a great tool there is each month you can have a set amount go into that investment account. It can grow or it can stay in cash, however you want to allocate that. And then towards the end of the year, you can donate that to your charity of choice. So that's a great benefit for any charitable giving. It can be a little more tax efficient. You have a little more strategy around when you make those contributions versus um, gifting to those charities. So if you have more questions about that, we can talk offline about that. But those are some really great tools for charitable giving. Donating appreciated stock as gifts, that's a big one as well for as well as the last point there for minors, the custodial accounts and 529 accounts. If you have kids or grandkids that you're wanting to provide gifts for, we all know toys add up and then create a lot of clutter, right? I know my daughter just turned 2, and it seems like we already have more toys than we will ever need for any future kids just because the toys just add up so quickly. And I didn't buy a single toy, so I don't know where they all came from. But those toys add up. A lot of times we don't need to be giving more toys, but different appreciated stocks or contributions to their education savings accounts, custodial accounts can be a fantastic way to give this holiday season in a way that's a little bit more maybe aligned with your values, goals, and priorities. So if you have more questions about that, we can certainly go into more detail there, but great tools for giving that are a bit more tax efficient. And again, generosity and strategy can coexist. Just because you're doing something that gives you a tax benefit or you have a plan or strategy around it does not reduce the generosity of the gift by any means. Last section I said I was going to talk about is debt-free and future focused, which is a huge topic. And this is a very important one when we think long-term. And the holidays are right upon us, right? Going into November already, it's amazing how quickly it's already come, right? So there's not a whole lot necessarily we can plan for this year, but looking forward, planning for next year and future years, planning for that can make a big difference. And we all know in January, we have those goals, right? We have typically financial goals, we have physical dieting goals, maybe that we like to set. And if we give ourselves a hurdle to get over right off the bat, right? If we add 10 pounds over the holiday season, which I can be very susceptible to with all the good food, if we add 10 pounds towards the end of the year, now we have that hurdle to get over before we're even making progress towards those goals. So it's really important to get started early and plan for that so that when the new year comes around, you don't have a hurdle to get over or a hole to dig yourself out of before you're making steps towards accomplishing those goals. Now, like I said, the holidays are upon us, so we don't have too much time to plan for this year. So for this year, what I would recommend is a little bit of a different budget for January. I call it the holiday detox budget for January, where you go through the holidays as best you can, right? Have your budget for gifts, gathering, and giving. And then when you get to January, have a little bit of a different budget where it's a detox from the holiday spending. So you have a little bit different 30 days than maybe you traditionally do. You cook at home instead of eating out. Maybe there's some subscriptions you can pause, avoiding impulse spending. Maybe instead of going out to the movies or other more expensive entertainment, you go to the park or on a hike, something that doesn't cost, and then you funnel that money where it would have gone into either paying off any credit cards that may have accumulated over November, December, or replenishing those savings. And then what that allows us to do is rather than waiting until March or April until you actually dig yourself out of that hole, now it's a little bit sooner and you're able to start working on those New Year's resolutions a little bit earlier. But this is what I would suggest for this year, since we don't have too much time to plan. For this year, have that built in just in case as a safety net, and you can have some fun with it. Get your kids involved with it if you have kids to be able to get yourself off to a good start for the new year. And then looking forward, planning goes a long way to avoid that holiday debt hangover, right? Which I know a lot of us have experienced before. Don't let a lack of planning start you off to a poor start the next year. The best way that I know to recommend going forward is a sinking fund. So a sinking fund is essentially a separate account. Now it can be within your same bank, just as a separate sub account that you can funnel money to a little bit each month, adds up to be quite a bit by the end of the year. And you have that specifically set aside for your holiday spending. Even $100 a month can go a long ways, right? By the time you get to December, you have an extra $1,200 a month, or excuse me, $1,200 for the holiday season that you can then spend on gifts, giving, and gatherings. I always recommend automating that so you don't forget about it, but it really does add up and helps to make it a little bit less stressful. Having that plan in place throughout the year really does lower your stress all year. Personally, for my wife and I, we have a sinking fund, which again is just a separate sub account, savings account within our other bank accounts that we have a little bit of money to each month. And that goes for gifts throughout the year, like birthday presents, anniversary gifts, and then holiday spending. We know how much is allocated to each of those buckets. And then when that time comes, we just transfer that money right over to the credit card, gets paid off, and we don't have to worry about it. That goes a long way to reducing some stress. And then lastly, some year-end moves that can strengthen your future. So a couple things that, and we may need to, again, talk offline if you have more in-depth questions about these things, but there's a few things you can implement towards the end of the year that you may want to be thinking about to be a little more, whether that's tax efficient or efficient in your overall spending, maxing out those retirement accounts, right? 401ks and HSAs specifically have contribution deadlines that you have to make those contributions by December 31st. Individual retirement accounts, you can extend those contributions to April, the tax filing deadline of the next year. So for those individual retirement accounts, maybe consider using that as an opportunity to get a little bit more of a refund that can help attack or help you recover from the holiday spending this year. Tax loss harvesting is one that's a little bit more of a complex strategy, but looking at any brokerage investment accounts towards the end of the year to see if there are any mid-year losses where you can sell those losses to offset some income or other investment gains that can reduce your overall tax liability for the year. And again, reducing tax liability oftentimes can result in a refund, which can give you money back into your pocket that can then go to funding next year's holiday spending, or it can go to help you dig out of the hole of this year's holiday spending. Funding 529 education plans or custodial accounts for minors can be a great way of giving and strengthening your kids' or grandkids' futures as well towards the end of the year. And I always recommend scheduling a financial wellness review either towards the end of the year or beginning of the following year, just to help make sure you have your plan in place and that you're on track for either this year or next year. And then as you go throughout this year, I would encourage you to keep an eye on your spending. Of course, always keep an eye on your spending, but use it as a guide to help plan for next year. So as you go, let's say you know you're going to spend or want to spend X amount in terms of the gift category, or X amount in terms of gatherings, where you're getting gathering people together, X amount in giving. And then you can plan for that next year so you know that it's already set aside for. You can wipe your hands and say, we're good, we're already set for next year as well. So those are just some things that I recommend help close out the year strong and get you started next year as well. So as a reminder, we're always available as a resource to help review your strategy. So if you want to go more into detail on your holiday strategy this year or help make sure you're set for going into the new year as well, feel free to reach out to us. You can scan that QR code to go into our calendar to schedule a virtual meeting with any of us. You can also reach out to us via email or phone number. It's my direct email there. Like I said, keep an eye out for the webinar next week with Catherine. It'll be a great webinar more on the mental health and behavioral health side of spending through the holidays, which will be great to tune into as well. And then we are finalizing our 2026 calendar, which we did add some topics in there from your survey recommendations. So feel free to add some more to that if you want us to take those into consideration. But a few minutes left here, so I'm going to go through some questions that we got. And if you have any questions or want more clarification on anything, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A. But Chad, are there any questions you're seeing out there?
Yeah, there's a couple here. What are your thoughts on opting for gift cards for adults and relatives?
That's a great question, and definitely some pros and cons to that. I laugh because essentially that's what seems like my brother and I do. So every, holidays, he sends me a $50 gift card for Amazon, and then at his birthday the next year I send him a $50 Amazon gift card. It's fine, but I personally prefer looking to something that's a little bit more meaningful. And part of that is also because the sentiment can come across the exact same as a $50 gift card, but maybe you only spend $10, $15 on it. And so the sentimental side of things can add a bit more value than the actual dollar amount. But that's a key area and a key example of something that you could say, hey, we're looking to pay down our debt, save for a down payment on a house. And so we're not going to be giving those types of gifts, and we don't expect anything from you either. And you never know; they may continue to send those your way to help you fund those specific goals.
Specific goals. Awesome. Thanks, Rocky. Another question here. Do you have any suggestions on how to get started when you feel like you're already behind?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I would say specifically for this holiday season, being regardless, figuring out who you want those gifts to go to, and then talking with them, being open and communicative with them about your goals and your values and their goals and values can help you with that structure and strategy for this year. And then for next year, look at your budget and create that plan to get out of the hole, so to speak, so that you can make those steps forward. So next year you're not in the same situation and you're able to give maybe as much or more as you would like. And so for that question specifically, I'd probably say reach out to us so we can help you create a plan to get out from behind, so to speak. And a lot of times you're not necessarily behind relative to everyone else. You may be behind relative to where you want to be. So we can help you see through that and create a plan, because really the key there is just having a plan in place and then being open and communicative with those that are expecting gifts from you, I would say.
So thanks, Rocky. I would also like to add, that kind of goes hand in hand with long-term financial planning. This is one thing that we all need to plan for. I call the last 3 months of the year my financial Armageddon, because I have like three birthdays and Christmas, and it gets expensive real quick. And if I don't plan for that earlier on in the year, it becomes uh, less fun and more of a burden on how am I going to get it all paid for. So it's one of those things that if you have a financial base application that you could use for financial wellness, it's another goal that you can add in order to get there. And then to Rocky's point that he said earlier, let's try to get it covered right away this year so that you can make the plan for next year. So that way you don't have to worry about always being behind um, in terms of playing catch up, so to speak. So I would encourage all of you to reach out to us. Rocky, thank you so much for doing this. He is by far and large the best part of our team when it comes to stuff like this. So please email him continually all day, every day, especially after 5 and on the weekends. He loves it. And reach out to us. We're here to help. We know that this can be a challenging time of year financially and from an emotional health and stress standpoint. It's one of those things that we can help with and hopefully make your life a little easier. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Happy holidays.